So a little bit to myself. My name is Atilla. I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey. That's where I grew up. I studied engineering, and then I joined Procter & Gamble. I worked there about 17 years, worked in different categories. And the last 4.5 years, I've been the Chief Marketing Officer for Merck Consumer Health. What do I do? What's my mission? I help grow our business by inspiring big ideas that start conversations and that earn actually love for our brands, right? So the first part is I help build our business. Nobody pays you unless you help them pay the bills, the salaries, right? So it needs to somehow pay back to the company what you're doing. And the second part is the part that we're going to emphasize this morning, which is about ideas that start conversations, that connect with people, that evoke emotions, and ultimately earn the love for our brands. Last year around this time, the weather was significantly better, I have to admit. We were talking in CMO Inspired again about brand love and the power of love in brand building, and that love makes you stick out in a crowded environment. And we talked about actually, because people were provoking a little bit, is there love for a brand really? How can you measure it? Indeed, we have been referring, since I started the job, I've been referring to a study that was done in North America with college students, where they were shown for a couple of seconds different logos, hidden within them also a few brands that meant really a lot to the students. And they measured that their heartbeat slowed down, so they skipped a beat, so to speak. Proving again that we have a special connections with people and with things that we love. This year I'll be talking about specifically irresistibility. What does irresistible mean? It means wanna have, right? Wanna possess. But in the context that we're talking about, which is brand building, irresistible, I'll be talking about means three things. The first one is, think about a person actually. You would have to have a common grounds, common aspirations with that person so that you feel this alignment, this attraction to the person. In the brand world, we would call this a purpose, a meaning that actually governs our life, that helps us make our choices. The second element, the second ingredient I'm going to be talking about, also giving you examples, will be communication with emotions. So a person can be the most beautiful or the most helpful, the handsome one. You may not be as attracted to them if they don't know how to communicate with you, right? It's just a facade, it's just the looks, it's very physical. So in this sense, if we translate it to the brands also, you don't want to be the brand that communicates in a way that you're not interested in them. They may be looking fantastic, but they don't enter that conversation that interests you. So that's the piece where we're going to touch upon the brand bonding. And the third one, you can imagine, I alluded to it, is love at first sight. This is the physical piece, right? In a sea of similars, how do you, unless somebody sticks out, go up to them and ask for a drink? So in the brand perspective, this is the brand design, the brand packaging that makes you stick out. So let's switch the gears in healthcare and ask ourselves, and think about your own, you may not be working in the industry. Think about your own experience with healthcare. Do you think healthcare is attractive as such? Yes? What? Botox, that may be an exception to it. So I know now who is the Allergan person, no? Can we offer, so I switch gears to more the conventional part of it, right? Healthcare is being perceived as mostly popping pills. So can we actually create a greater meaning to healthcare than popping pills? How can we create a desire to choose one brand over the other? And the third element that we talked about, how can we create love at first sight? This is mostly what it looks like around the world in pharmacies. How do you stand out in a sea of similars, where more or less everything looks like the same, so you have to actually read to recognize which brand or product you're looking for? How do we communicate beyond the medicinal facts, right? It is a hungry industry that asks more and more facts, where people will want to know if you're going to be relieved from your if you get more supple by 30%, if you're going to be relieved from your blocked nose for however many hours, if you're going to get a relief from your nerve care blockage for another 2 hours, it's all about numbers and facts. So how can we go beyond that? There's a lot of the expected also. How can we be more inspiring in our communication versus a lot of the examples? This is, a snapshot of communication around the world versus stating the obvious facts. And as we show emotions, and because the book says you have to show some emotions, how can you be authentic? How can you show actually caring these positive emotions in a way that doesn't look like pretentious or fake, right? You can look at the smiles here. Oh, we're happy thanks to this. And so how can we go beyond that? So in essence, as we talk about our journey, how we have made healthcare, our brands, irresistible and stick out from the masses, we have 3 ingredients, and I'm going to touch upon them in 3 examples, go into the brand purpose and these aspirations, hopefully finding a common ground with the shopper, with the consumer. Communication, ability to communicate that evokes emotions. And then the third one is about brand design that is going to hopefully lead to love at first sight. Okay, let's get started. So Nazivin is my first example. Is one of our global brands. It's sold in more than 60 countries. It has a long heritage. And here our challenge is, if you think about the aspiration, about the purpose, is to transform a brand that is a very, very good, very premium, high quality, has got all the facts together, a nasal decongestion, a nasal spray, to actually enabling free and healthy breathing for millions of people out there. And also, if you think about it, it enables you to breathe a little bit from life, okay? So in this context, enabling you to breathe a little bit from the chores of life, from the things that you've got to do, we have figured out a way to communicate this category in which 10 different brands say the exact same thing to bring across emotions. I'm going to show you an example from Africa. The brand's name, historically it's been that way, is Iliadin, so don't get thrown off by that. And this idea and the way we communicate it has actually earned us a lot of organic growth on the internet, went viral like mad, and with 30-40% less investment versus a much bigger competitor, versus a competitor that spends much, much more, we have been able to push through and grow. So have a look.
Iliadin not only gives you fast relief from a blocked nose, but also cuts the duration by up to 2 days. And both your suffering 2 days sooner with Iliadin.
Okay, so who from the women can relate to this situation? I see a lot of hands raising, right? Who from man can relate to this situation? Yeah. We have actually studies looking into quantitatively also how, proving also how men suffer much, much more than women in the same exact physical circumstances, right? How they are completely disabled and they need help and everything. So, great. So the third piece was love at first sight, right? So we remember the shelf in the pharmacy and how can you stick out of that. So Nazivin for many years also has been a premium priced, very reliable, all the facts together, nasal decongestion. We have transformed it to a beauty accessory. So you see here the color coding, the premiumness impression, the visual language here is on a completely different place, which then also completes the picture for irresistibility. Now I'll show you the proof in the pudding. Let me explain here, if it works out. Okay, let me explain here Love brand is our way of expressing this irresistible brands, right? This is the nirvana of the brands that you want to go after. A very simple way across the world, you know, we have the 4,000 people, probably most of them would be familiar with looking at how do we measure the traction on the brand, how do we measure the strength of its image. So 2 axes, the x-axis here, if I can't, no, I can't point out, so I'll go like this. Here the irresistibility, brand love, and here the inexchangeability, brand respect. So the more you can push your brand towards the upper right-hand side, the better it is, right? So South Africa is the example that you guys have seen, where I was telling you with much less spending, the way we have actually pulled the right strings, we have been able to push ourselves into this love brand area. And with very similar idea, implemented locally slightly differently in Russia, India, those are just 3 examples of how we have made this brand that had all the right ingredients out there, the facts that come in together, but not right the way of communicating. So the past 4 years, this has been one of our fastest growing brands. The second example I will give you is 7 C's. Who of you know 7 C's? Okay, great. So it's one of the leading and very well-known vitamin brands here in the UK. It actually originated from the UK, but it's a global brand. You know, you can go from Central America to Southeast Asia. 7 C's has a good standing, good respect. And here in the context of 7 C's, we said, how do we transform, again, a very premium omega-3 product, of which there is dozens out there. Think about the shelf again, right? So much offering in this category. How can we transition this into a brand that's about helping people to live their true age? Your true age meaning not the age on your passport, but the age the way you feel inside. How can we help them staying younger for longer, especially at the heart, so that they can play with their grandchildren, right, in the same scene as you're seeing here? Then you tap into something, an aspiration, a purpose that then transcends all the jibber-jabber of all the other brands and, you know, how many new grams and milligrams of omega-3 they may be having or other goodies in there. So let's have a look at an example from Saudi Arabia. For those of you who may be familiar, there's a lot of restrictions in communication, what you're allowed to show, what you're not allowed to show, but emotions are still there. And thanks to this movie, we have given ourselves, within 6 months or so, a huge push in terms of brand image and making 7 C's irresistible in Saudi Arabia.
As you wake up to a new day, let me ask you this. What is your heart beating for? Is it beating for the future? Or is it beating for this moment, here and now? I am no fortune teller. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. But I do know one thing. I know my heart. I know it beats for them. I know it beats for this moment. And this moment will last me a lifetime.
Every time I watch it, it gives me goosebumps, right? You think about your own parents, about your own children, nephews, and generations coming together. It's all about staying young at the heart, and it resonates wherever you go, right? And yes, we were not allowed to show naked bodies, so we thought about it would be the surfers out there. You're not allowed to show women, and so it was the boys' days out, but the feeling is still the same. So the piece that had to complement this is in-store. So the first sight, the love at first sight would have to come. So for years here also, fantastic products that have all the right things in there, but look and feel was more or less the same as many others out there competing for shares. So we have transformed these products to, again here, very premium, luscious looking, very rich looking products that, especially for the female shopper, are much more attractive than they used to. And as we're talking, this packaging design is being rolled out across the world. We are very, very proud and happy about it. Just to my earlier alluding to Saudi Arabia and that it has given us a huge push, alone in a period of 6 months' time, right? So for those of you who actually quantitatively measure brand equity and brand image, they will know that it's not that easy to make a big change in the perception of the brand in a short period of time. In fact, the company previously I was working for, we used to measure every year the brand equity, because we knew that if you do this more often, more frequently, that you won't really have a statistically measurable difference. Here you see within 6-7 months' time, thanks to the content that we have just talked about, Seven Seas has gotten a huge push in the face of big brands backed by big companies, right? Centrum is by Pfizer, Pharmaton is by Sanofi. And we're very, very proud of this. We have similar examples also around the world where we have completely moved from being one of the many good, reliable, but more my grandma's brand into very contemporary and connects with me, has an aspiration, and when I look at it, I'm seriously attracted to it, thanks to its packaging. By the way, our packaging director is here, Christine. She has joined me as well, and she's one of my favorite people in the company and has done a fantastic job. I have brought her over as the proof here. You can ask her also how the journey went, and in the breaks, how does the aspiration and the communication, how do we translate it actually into the packaging so it pulls the right strings. The third example is one of the also difficult ones, let me say, because Neurobion has been for years, 40+ years, belonging to the biopharma business where the pharmaceutical brands amongst with oncology, MS, fertility, and this was a vitamin B product for neuropathic pain, right? So as you can imagine, the environment in which this brand has started out 4 years ago when the company has decided to give it onto our laps in consumer health and to make a love brand out of it, it was in this kind of environment. It's vitamin Bs and it's about the nerves, nerves and pain caused by the nerves and everything. So how can we transform it from this world into one where it's about real people, into one where it's about celebrating, elevating the underdogs of the society in developing countries, right? A lot of the people who earn very little, this for example is from India, earn very little, have to do a lot of motoric work with their hands, and if they have difficulties with their sensory abilities, with their nerves, then that's a real issue for them, right? Because health means wealth, and turn it in positively, you can reinforce actually wealth coming with health, and as I said, celebrate and declare them the true heroes because they're making compromises on themselves to feed their families, to provide better education to them and everything. So let's have a look of this example, how have we brought it alive, this aspiration in the communication in India.
अपने हाथों से अपनी कामयाबी लिखी है और आज भी कड़ी मेहनत करता हूं। क्यों? अपनों के सपने जो पूरे करने हैं। पहले ये सब नहीं कर पाता था, फिर मेरे डॉक्टर ने बताया ये बी विटामिन की कमी हो सकती है और रोजाना न्यूरोबायन फॉर्ट लेने की सलाह दी। बी विटामिन का अनोखा मिश्रण जो इस कमी को पूरा करता है। न्यूरोबायन फॉर्ट, इंडिया का नंबर 1 विटामिन ब्रांड और मैं अपने बेटे का नंबर 1 हीरो।
So this idea allowed us also to do a lot of other activities, promotions via the radio. People could vote for their own true hero, who is actually the grandma that takes care of you when your parents are out there working. You know, everybody has in their lives, when you are striving, when you're in that social class also, a true hero that they wanted to celebrate. So we had, I think, 1 billion, if not more, reach alone, hovering around this topic of picking the true hero of your life, celebrating, getting recognition for them, etc. I wanted to also give you an example where what do you do if you have one of the 3 ingredients missing? So if you do not necessarily have a greater brand purpose that is defined, and they don't come in one day, right? And your CEO will be breathing at your neck, you need a campaign, you need to communicate, you have the money ready to invest, so what do you do? I just wanted to show you that you can also survive, thrive, do really well if you leverage those two, which is the other two, which is communicating with emotions and then the third one being the love at first sight. So I'll show you now what were we doing before we were as clear about the purpose with this elevation of the underdog. It's about the functional benefits, but still has a humor, has something that makes people smile and engage on the brand. You'll see here from Latin America, meme characters that stand for the different indications of the brand, indications of nerve care.
En la vida diaria pueden haber molestias corporales recurrentes como entumecimiento, tic en el ojo y hormigueo. No te acostumbres a vivir con estas molestias que pueden ser ocasionadas por deficiencia de vitamina B. Con Neurobión y su óptima dosis de vitamina B, es posible aliviar estas molestias corporales relacionadas a algunas enfermedades del sistema nervioso. Saca estas molestias de tu vida con Neurobión.
Okay, so you see here there is no life-changing, huge purpose that you can think about. It's not going to take over probably millions of people saying, I am one of them, and let me celebrate my true hero. But it brings the message alive. It is such high correct attribution to the brand that you can even air the copy without one time saying Neurobion. It has the same exact, almost the same correct attribution because of the meme characters are so distinctive and recognizable. The third piece is about packaging design, right? So this one, I was telling you, is a crying game. It has been looking like this around the world. There's no consistency. It looks like it could be anything, right? It could be a kidney collapse. The packaging of the medication could be looking exactly the same way. So we have transitioned this into bringing alive this aspiration, the celebratory tone, with a color coding, an architecture that is sitting, of course, backed with the medical facts. And so it is not just come up like this. The medical folks and the pharmacists and the general practitioners should have to follow what is the architecture looking like. And then an element that we have built in this iconic N. Jokingly, I say it's like Chanel, but it makes it recognizable even if you're not allowed to put down the name Neurobion, right? It's very, very important, especially in healthcare where there's a lot of handcuffs, restrictions. You need to do the communication in a way that you work with emotions, and secondly, you have elements that are recognizable, so when you're not allowed to say the brand name, that people still know this is Neurobion. Here, the same way of looking at the image and how strong it is in 4 countries that I've picked. These are our spearhead countries. So these are countries that are representative for the vicinity. So if we do the research there, knee in and nail down the communication there, we assume that the others can also feed off of them. Indonesia, India, Mexico, and Brazil. And in all 4 of them, you see that we are significantly ahead of competition in this area of love brand, where you have top scoring irresistibility and top scoring respect also for the brand. Also, this one has been one of the strongest growing. I think alone in 2017, it grew 13%. All right, so in summary, those were my 3 examples. Hope that they have been good stimulus for you. In summary, you need to have shared aspirations. Think about it as a person. If you want someone to fall in love with you, you need to bring across this purpose, this higher order meaning that can make health choices. Second, communication with emotions. Don't forget that you need to bond with people with an idea that gives a platform for great conversations for people to engage with you. And thirdly, the love at first sight is very, very important. Unless it is a service business and it's transactional with a product, you always need to pay attention to design. And I would definitely suggest to invest into this area to recruit talent that may be very, very expensive, but it for sure will pay out ultimately, because you see how we have transformed the look and feel of the brands in line with the intention. So those were the 3 ingredients to make your brands irresistible. This is the part, we cut it intentionally a little short to allow also for questions and conversation. This is a topic that I absolutely love and adore, so I can't get enough stimulus from other industries also. So please, thank you, and go ahead with questions. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for your presentation, very interesting.
Sure.
I have a curiosity. you show us a couple of ways to do advertising. One much more rational with a clear reason to believe, reason why, that we know it's engaging the rational part of our consumer, Latin America and so on. Then you show us seven
Seven Cs.
yes, very, very emotional. And I do believe that absolutely you moved into your KPI emotional tracking, definitely. I was wondering if you had some learning from a business point of view, because what I'm missing there is what's in for me. What is the benefit for consumer? Was enough to have business to increase the sales, or just created awareness? And this is the question.
Okay, thank you. I've shown you examples which were probably the most representative of what we were after. So it doesn't mean that this is the only piece of copy, this is the only visual stimulus that was out there, right? So I've shown you examples from each of them. Also for 7Cs, there are versions where we talk about the specific product, as well as for Neurobion, it's only about the life of a wheelchair little girl and the appreciation of the grandmother. Equally for Nazivine, there is no product, it's only about the tension between husband and the wife, husband dragging his feet to go to work and everything. So we do dramatize on and around the same territory. The key is, I think, to have an idea that is flexible enough to go to take you all the way to the other end of the spectrum with emotions, but zoom back into the functional benefits as needed. Thank you. Go ahead.
Do you ever fear that there is a saturation of dramatic communication in terms of brand building, and then you just fall into a commonplace with other brands and the customer is just overloaded with that type of communication?
Because when you say saturation, as in too much?
As in everybody from this room start communicating at dramatic level to bond, and then customers just become less sensible to that.
Yeah, I mean, it would not be a fear, right? Overall, our company is dedicated to the healthcare territory, so the more people are actually communicating in a way that increases the penetration of, for example, Neurobion, the more companies are going into that direction of making the category attractive. I don't think that this is something to be afraid of. But specifically of what we are doing, we of course measure any piece of content as we're developing it, but after it has been out in the marketplace, so with methodologies that we have internally also developed and feel good with, constantly train our people on to make sure that we don't go overboard with humor, for example, that it is turning off people. Or we don't go overboard when we have to reassure on the functional benefits that it loses some of the irresistibility, right? So that you need to find the right balance for sure. Yes? Yeah.
Hi, thanks. I thought it was a really interesting presentation, so thank you very much. Really quite thought-provoking. You can control the message, the emotion, the story within your paid media. How difficult is it to keep the story going, keep the emotion there when somebody walks into a pharmacy or into a doctor's surgery or into somewhere they're going to end up with that packaging in their hand? Yeah. How difficult is that?
Sure. So probably less and less difficult if you have a fantastic idea, right? So you need to be very anal at the evaluation of the idea stage before any of these executions even exist, right? And to look at how flexible that idea will be, flexible with the different target groups, if it gives enough stimulus for the pharmacist, for the doctor. Think about the Nazivine example, right? Majority of the pharmacists are female. You go into their shop and start talking about this insight, they start laughing, right? And immediately they have their own story, and so that gives you a check in terms of the flexibility on the target groups. Then you need to think about digital gives you the opportunity to organically grow where you don't necessarily have to pay. So can you think about ways of stimulating a discussion, right? That is going to engage people and ask them or invite them to be part of the conversation. So if it is the right idea, it's very, very important. that has then miles to go into different target groups, to go into different channels, and in that sense, I think we're in a good place. And where we're not, and I told you that this is a journey, right? Then we course correct it, look at it again. Maybe this doesn't have the mileage that we were hoping for, and we are overlooking at the strategic portfolio has 10 brands. I've given you only 3 of them. On each of them, we do similar tracking, market research, very, very important. And then you can't replace raw talent, right? That's always what I say. You can't do methodology, market research enough, because if the content is not good, you can be doctoring around it as much as you like and nothing great will come into it. So you need to have people in your creative team. You need to be partnering with agencies that give you that brilliant idea, and it's then up to you to pick that one and make it big.
Can I maybe just follow up with one on that? There was a lot of TV. I'm assuming that was aired on TV. Was there a lot of
Digital.
media?
Digital. So these examples were media on digital or on the YouTube channel that then enable people to pick up on it, comment on it, etc. So our approach has shifted the past couple of years to digital first, and then everything else follows. In some countries, you have, I'm getting stressful looks about the time. I'll just answer this one. And so, in some countries, you don't have the kind of penetration. You have learnings and facts that show you that you get to reach via TV or other media. So we stay flexible in the toolboxes to give the countries also the option to not necessarily go digital first. And we just have to then prove that the way we have taken is working. It better does.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. You had one more question. We just need to get the permission from the timekeepers.
Sorry, we're going to have to wrap up, but feel free to ask the discussion speaker during the break.
Okay, I'll come and find you. Thank you so much.